Say these words.
Let me translate.
To the City Council meeting of March the 16th, 2021. We will begin by asking our City Secretary to call the roll.
Councilman De La Garza.
I'm present.
Councilman Bucknight.
Here.
Councilwoman Scott.
Here.
Councilman Young.
Here.
Councilman Lofgren.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Solis.
Here. With 6 members present, we do have a quorum, and we will continue with the meeting of the Victoria City Council. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let's stand for a moment of silence, please. I would like to begin our meeting with a moment of silence to solemnize our proceedings, and so I invite each of you to join me in a silent moment of prayer or reflection as you may choose. This evening, I would especially like this moment of silence to honor the life and legacy of Mayor Raleigh McCoy. Thank you. Seating in the council chambers remains limited to allow the social distancing, and there are still many residents in our high-risk population. For those reasons, we will also continue to allow citizen participation through video conferencing. To learn about all the ways you can watch the meeting and participate remotely, we encourage you to visit www.victoriatech.org/talk-to-council, or .government, sorry. There are many options for how you can participate in our meeting tonight, ranging from watching on TV or speaking to citizens' comments through Zoom. Announcements. We have some announcements tonight.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. A couple of announcements this evening. The first one, I want to remind Council that on Friday, March 26th, we will be having a workshop, a quarterly workshop. That'll take place at 1 p.m. It's looking likely that it will take place at the ETC, but we will have Kate send you information, and I will also send a request for items from Council this week. So we're incorporating an items from council component to the workshops moving forward. And so be on the lookout for both of those communications with further details. Second, I want to ask Thomas Gush to come up and provide a brief announcement simply related to the transition that has occurred and the process that we will undertake.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and members of council. There have been some questions that have arisen surrounding the mayoral succession. You know that we have an item on the agenda tonight to call for a special election to replace Mayor Raleigh McCoy. But I know there are also some questions about what will happen in the meantime, and I'd like to address those very briefly. I've put together a PowerPoint presentation solely to put the words from the charter directly on the screen so you can see where this comes from. Our charter does cover what happens in the event of a mayoral vacancy or any other council member. And if you'll allow me to focus this paragraph a little bit on the words that are relevant in this situation, it says that in the case of a vacancy in the office of the mayor by death, resignation, or otherwise, City Council shall order an election to fill such vacancy. That is item C1 on our agenda tonight. City Secretary April Hilbrich will present that momentarily. In addition to that, the charter covers how we handle the period between now, when the vacancy was created with his passing, and the eventual election. And in Article 2, Section 6, what it says is that in the case of the death, resignation, or permanent disability of the mayor pro tem shall act as mayor and perform all duties of the mayor under the official title of mayor pro tem until a mayor is elected at a special election provided by this chapter. I want to specifically focus on the phrase under the title of mayor pro tem, because some people may be mistakenly assuming that our mayor pro tem ascends to the office of mayor just as a vice president would ascend to the office of president in the case of a presidential succession. But that is not the case. Under our charter, the mayor pro tem performs all duties of the office of mayor, but she retains the title of mayor pro tem. And so tonight she runs the meeting. She will handle ordinary business for the city, but she will retain the title of mayor pro tem. Looking forward, as a way of managing expectations, I want to be sure also to point out that this same section of Article 2, Section 6, talks about the election of the mayor pro tem and how long she holds office, because it is not going to be automatically until the mayor is replaced. Article 2, Section 6 says, at the first regular meeting of the city council after election of its members, the city council shall elect one council member as mayor pro tem, who shall hold the title and office until the expiration of term for which elected council member. Councilmember Solis is our mayor pro tem, and her current term of office is scheduled to expire on May 1st. So that means at our first regular meeting after May 1st, council will elect a mayor pro tem who will serve the remainder of the time until our mayor is sworn into office. Our next mayor is sworn into office. And so I don't want anyone to, mistakenly assume that Mayor Pro Tem Solis will be mayor until such time. There will be a point in time in May where council will need to select a new mayor pro tem. There is not a term limit applied to mayor pro tems. They can be reelected. Yes,
I have
sir.
a question for you. So the way I read this is that we would elect a mayor pro tem in May. And then again, if we approve the resolution before us tonight after the July 3rd meeting?
No.
No?
The way I read it is that whoever we elect as mayor pro tem in May holds that office until the expiration of the term for which they were elected council member. So for example, if Josephine Solis were elected again to be mayor pro tem, she would serve 3 years as mayor pro tem until the end of that term as council member.
Okay, so the last sentence bearing more heavily than the first.
Correct.
Okay.
That is, and we have historically interpreted that in the past. There were questions that came up. For example, I believe it was David Hagan, I'm not sure, I could go back and confirm that historically, where he continued on in office, of course, but his term as mayor pro tem was shortened to merely the time that he had remaining on his office. So we've consistently applied that in the past.
I thought that we had, generally, we elect a mayor pro tem whenever there's a change in membership of the council. Reading again, as he said, the first sentence with more weight.
Agreed, and that is a common misunderstanding. But it
Okay.
has been our practice consistently applied that whoever is elected mayor pro tem serves as mayor pro tem until the end of their term. What makes that confusing is that might be 1 year as mayor pro tem, that might be 2 years as mayor pro tem, that might be 3 years as mayor pro tem.
Thank you.
Sure.
Does it address if the mayor pro tem doesn't want to serve the full time?
That's a good point.
In the case of resignation, death, or permanent disability of, no, I'm sorry. This same section, Article 2, Section 6, that I'm excerpting some language from, earlier in the same paragraph talks about declining to serve. And so I think that the charter is attempting to address a situation where someone gets elected into office and then doesn't take that seat for whatever reason. In that case, the charter succession plan kicks in. But I think even though it doesn't specifically address mayor pro tem, only mayor or council members, I think we would apply that the same way to mayor pro tem if that were to be the case.
Because Mayor Pro Tem is a council member.
Any other questions? I know this has been a very sudden experience, and there are a lot of questions on people's minds, so I don't mind answering any that may come up. Thank you.
Those are all the announcements we have for this evening.
Okay. Do we have any citizens wishing to speak through the video conference?
Mayor Pro Tem, the next item is the public and employee recognition
Oh.
section,
Sorry, did I flip it wrong?
top of page 2.
Okay, I went the wrong way. Proclamations. April's going to read the text of the proclamation for Annual Public Transportation Appreciation Day.
Whereas the Golden Crescent Regional Planning Commission has been committed to providing public transportation services since November 1986 and provides multiple public transportation services. Whereas Golden Crescent Regional Planning Commission administers and operates rural public transportation services and operates a small urban public transportation service. Whereas public transportation creates economic opportunity, facilitates access to jobs and healthcare, and makes efficient use of resources. And whereas because of the many important contributions that the Golden Crescent Regional Planning Commission, Victoria Transit, and Our Transit Services has made to the growth and development of the region, they are deserving of a special recognition. And now, therefore, I, Josephine E. Solis, by the authority vested in me as the Mayor Pro Tem of the City of Victoria, designate March 18, 2021 as Annual Public Transportation Appreciation Day in the City of Victoria, Texas, and urge all citizens to join in recognizing the value of regional public transportation system and how essential these services are to our community.
Lisa, feel free to say a few words if you like.
I'm going to refer the mic over to our new operations manager, Angela Moya.
I promise I won't make this long. I know everybody's got places to go and people to see. First of all, I'd like to thank you for having us here today and taking time out of your busy schedules to acknowledge a group of individuals that sometimes feel under-acknowledged. Second, I would like to make a small introduction to some of the people that could make it here today. Lisa Cortina, she's our Director of Transportation, as well as some of the individuals that are hanging back here. We've got our Executive Director, Michael Ada. We've got some fleet technicians, our bus operator, one of our fleet supervisors, and our transportation service representatives, all of which help us do what we do every day. As Lisa said, my name is Angela Moya. I am the Transportation Operations Manager for Golden Crescent Regional Planning Commission. All sections of transportation are represented here today to celebrate the mayoral proclamation of Public Transportation Appreciation Day. Although all 61 transportation employees could not be present, we'll make sure that the mayoral proclamation signed here today is displayed for all to see. The proclamation will be a symbol of your appreciation, as well as the City of Victoria's recognition of the service that our employees provide. In the end, we are grateful to serve the City of Victoria and thankful for your acknowledgement. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Are there any items not otherwise listed on the agenda for which members of the City Council would like to request specific factual information, a recitation of existing policy, or a placement on further agenda?
Ms. Mayor Pro Tem, I don't have anything to put on a future agenda, but I would like to acknowledge the Victoria County Public Health Department, David Gonzalez and his team, VPD, the fire department, and all the many, many volunteers who have put forth great efforts for the COVID vaccine clinic and rollout. I get to see quite a few patients, people on a daily basis, and many elderly. that have gone through there, and in my office, they've expressed great appreciation for how smooth, how successful and efficient that clinic has run despite the numbers. So I think that's wanted to be publicly acknowledged, the great work that they're doing in getting this vaccine rollout. So great job.
Good.
Absolutely. And if I can add, IT has been heavily involved in the process. They even have been conducting surveys of the people that have signed up online, gone through the clinic, and some of those comments are pretty great. We've received comments from people that the process was as smooth as the Chick-fil-A drive-through. And as smooth as Disneyland. So take it at face value, but those are a couple of comments that have stood out to us that we've received from the people that have participated in the clinic.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great job.
Yeah, I've heard that some come as far as, up north, and, my nephew came all the way from Houston because Victoria's got it all together, so those are some good comments that we've heard. too.
Absolutely. We actually had a couple from Toronto that came, and they were referred to by a couple out of Austin that came, and their friends in Austin told them, don't come to Austin, don't go to Houston, don't go to San Antonio, go to Victoria, Texas, and they were happy that they came.
Yes.
And I hope they bought some food or something while they were here.
They had to have stayed here. I
Yeah,
don't
that's
think they
right.
could have driven right back. Okay, so we appreciate that. Well, thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Solis,
Yes.
just the fact that I am calling on you and asking you to run the meeting today, I believe our hearts are all heavy. I just don't think any of us feel like we can speak or truly pay tribute to Mayor McCoy, and I know we'll all miss him. I'm sure others have things they'd like to say and perhaps will, but we have a great leader who's put us on a path, and I'm glad for each and every one of you and for the time that we all work together, and I'm looking forward to what we do in the future.
I appreciate that. I think we all feel the same way. He brought us together, and together we will carry his legacy and his memory forward. That's our promise to the people of Victoria. Okay. Citizens' communication. As a reminder, citizens' communication may be done either in person or through video conferencing. We would encourage anyone who has any recent exposure to COVID or those that might be in high-risk population groups to make use of the video conference option. These instructions are again available at www.victoriatexas.gov/talktocouncil. Comments will be limited to 5 minutes in duration and will be received by audio only. There will not be an opportunity to provide any presentation or visual material either in person or via teleconference. Please remember to silence all cell phones, televisions, or other background noise so that we can hear your comments clearly. In general, the practice of the City Council is not to respond to comments made during this time, but city staff will be available to follow up as necessary. We do have a couple of comment cards. I have Michael Vonderum. I'm sorry, Michael.
That's what I liked about Mr. McCoy. He's the only one that could pronounce my name. That's what I liked about
I'm
him
sorry.
the most.
I'll practice, Michael.
Thanks. Well, I don't think you can replace him.
No, I don't bet.
Hi, Mayor Pro Tem and City Council and City Manager. Just my condolences to Mayor McCoy. What I like about him, how he got involved with the COVID-19, scenario. He's an architect, so he didn't have a medical background, but he did just as a good of job as Dr. McNeil and David Gonzalez and everything, helping us make it through this. And I wanted to thank the chief of police and the detectives and everyone else, for helping in the trailer park. There's been lots of drug trafficking there, and they made a major arrest, and he bonded out, and they got him the next day again. So they didn't give him no bond this time. He should learn his lesson. But anyway, I would also like to thank code enforcement, the owner of the trailer park and the manager, they choose not to get involved. So, code enforcement is the one getting involved. And on trailer number 19, we got 3 mattresses, 2 TVs, microwaves, we got ice boxes and stuff. It looks like a city dump. And I appreciate code enforcement getting involved with it. What they do is they fax the owner of the trailer. He won't give us his address or phone number because he chooses not to get involved. So code enforcement has to get involved. And just want to thank everything. And the COVID-19, you can get it if you're a veteran in Kerrville, in Victoria now, in San Antonio. I got my first dose, and my second one I get in Monday. And they got a lot of openings in Victoria too. You register online, and I think they call you this time if there's an opening. Thanks, and have a good day, everything.
You
Appreciate it.
too, Michael. Thank you. Dale Fowler?
Good evening, Madam Mayor Pro Tem, council members, Mr. Manager. Thank you for the opportunity to visit with you. I'm Dale Fowler, President of the Victoria Economic Development Corporation. And I'd like to visit with you just briefly about an agenda item that you have coming up. And you're going to hear a much better, well-prepared presentation on the item of the Office of Management and Budget's attempt to eliminate the Victoria Metropolitan Statistical Area through their rule changing. And obviously, there's going to be some significant financial loss if that happens, and I think you'll hear about that more in just a moment. But from our perspective of the folks who are out there trying to market our community, this is one more thing that makes it difficult or will make it more difficult to market our area. In fact, there are those opportunities that we won't show up for when folks are searching across the United States for MSAs that they may want to take their business to. We just won't be there. Some would ask, well, how will we know if we miss these opportunities? We won't necessarily know, and it's going to have an impact on us. I know many of people here in the community, as well as our office, have sent out opportunities to our members to get involved and make public comment, and I would certainly encourage anyone who's viewing your meeting tonight to get involved and make their comments known. I've heard from our Congressman's office today. I've heard from Senator Cornyn's office today. And obviously, those gentlemen are also opposed to this ruling. And I appreciate you all considering being opposed to this ruling as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Dale. James, we don't have anybody on video conference or? Okay, thank you. Items with public hearing. Item on C1.
Madam, this is an ordinance calling the special election on July 3rd, 2021 for mayor of the city of Victoria.
I'm going to read it in Spanish much slower than I did last time.
Thank you.
Una ordenanza que convoca una elección especial el 3 de julio del 2021 para alcalde de la ciudad de Victoria.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem Solis and Council. Due to the passing of Mayor McCoy, the City of Victoria must order an election to fill the vacancy of an unexpired term ending in May 2022. Article 11, Section 11C of the Texas Constitution requires that the election be held within 120 days after the vacancy occurred. Staff recommends ordering the election for Saturday, July 3rd, which falls within the requirements of the Texas Constitution. If called, candidates may file for a place on the ballot immediately, and the filing period would end on Monday, May 3rd at 5 p.m. The early voting period would be longer than usual, being held from June 16th to July 29th. The Victoria County Elections Administrator, Margetta Hill, would administer the election for the City of Victoria, and this item is being presented to you as an emergency reading. Is there any questions I could answer for you, or Thomas?
Can you repeat again the dates of the, because I thought you said June the 16th to July the 29th?
I'm sorry, it's June 16th to June 29th is for the,
okay.
I apologize.
Okay.
So it's about 5 days longer than the normal early voting periods, and it's 17 days versus 12.
Okay.
And that's because it's not held on a uniform election date.
So we would have 17 days for
17 days of early voting. Yes,
early
ma'am.
voting, okay.
And did you say they could start registering immediately?
Immediately, yes, ma'am.
So something I'd read of a date in April is not the case.
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. That, it will be immediately, and I do have packets ready in my office, and it will be posted online tomorrow.
Yeah, we originally had a date in April based off of just traditional calendars. But in conferring with the Secretary of State's office, they made some adjustments to what we had originally put together. And so one of those adjustments was, one, the early voting.
Yes.
Second, the fact that folks can start signing up immediately.
And the reason for that, Ms. Scott, is that this election is not on a uniform election date. That was the explanation given to us by the Secretary of State's office.
Which would be your first Saturday in May and the first Tuesday in November. Those are your uniform elections.
Okay,
So the sky's the limit, huh? We're making it up as we go. We're not the Secretary of State.
Well, they do, there are regulations within the state law. They're very complicated and depend on exactly which day you call the election. So that's why we did ask for confirmation from them on the dates that we selected.
Well, thank you.
It only changed the beginning date, right? The last date to file to run for mayor is still May 3rd, which is the date that we had in our preliminary internal schedule that we had shared. So that doesn't change. It's simply just when it
Yeah.
starts.
It's normally right at a month long, a filing period, so it just makes it longer, about 6-7 weeks.
okay. At this time, we'll open up the public hearing. If you wish to speak on this item, please use the raise your hand feature on the Zoom or submit a comment card to the city staff. Are there any comment cards to this item? Okay.
I move we adopt item C1.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. The consent agenda. April will read the items in the consent agenda.
Item D1 on the consent agenda is the adoption of the minutes of the March 2nd meeting. Item D2 is a resolution approving to close and abandon a portion of Stolt Street for the purpose of constructing a signalized intersection at Highway 59 and at Highway 59 Business and Stoltz Azalea Street, and approve a mutual contribution and aid of construction agreement with HEB for the project. Item D3 is a resolution approving a variance to Section 21-82A1 and Section 2182A2 for a property located at 1012 Julia Street in order to plat the property into a single-family residential lot. Item D4 is a resolution approving a variance to Section 2182A1 for a property located at 4408 Hanselman Road in order to plat the property into a single-family residential lot. Item D5 is an ordinance reviewing and renewing Chapter 15 of the Victoria City Code as it pertains to the city's juvenile curfew, and this is the second and third reading of that item. And item D6 is a resolution awarding the HSP to LED luminary replacement project to Vaca Underground Utilities Incorporated of Houston, Texas for their competitive sealed proposal in the amount of $106,300.
I move we adopt the consent agenda as presented.
A second.
Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Action items from council. April will read each item and present it.
Item E1 is a resolution appointing a council member to serve on the Victoria Metropolitan Planning Organization Policy Advisory Committee. The Victoria Metropolitan Planning Organization is an agency created by federal law to provide local input for urban transportation planning and for the allocation of federal transportation funds. The Victoria MPO is responsible for coordinating comprehensive and continued transportation planning for all modes of surface transportation in the Victoria metropolitan area. The City Council appoints 2 council members to the MPO Policy Advisory Committee, and those members serve until replaced by another member of the council. Councilman Scott and Mayor Pro Tem Solis currently represent the city on the MPO. Due to Mayor Pro Tem Solis taking over additional duties, she wishes to have another council member appointed to serve on the MPO. Councilman Lofgren has expressed an interest in serving on this committee.
I move we appoint Councilman Lofgren to the MPO in place of Mayor Pro Tem Solis.
A second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those against? Motion carries.
Item E2 is a resolution appointing a council member to the Victoria Housing Finance Corporation Board of Directors. The Victoria Housing Finance Corporation is a nonprofit corporation established to provide a means of financing the cost of residential ownership and development that will provide decent, safe, and sanitary housing for persons of low and moderate income at prices that they can afford. The board is composed of 3 council members, and currently Councilman De La Garza, Councilman Doc Knight, and then Mayor McCoy were appointed to the board. Due to the recent passing of Mayor McCoy, a new member must be appointed to the Housing Finance Corporation, and Councilman Bachknight has also requested to be replaced on the board. Councilwoman Scott and Councilman Young have expressed interest in serving on the board. It's a 6-year term, but because it's in the middle of a term, the terms will end on December 1st of 2022.
I move we, go ahead.
I move we adopt E2.
You have to
With
mention the
names.
appointments.
I do.
Yes.
That we replace Mayor McCoy and Jeff Bachknight with Jan Scott and
Dr. Young.
Dr. Young.
Andrew's fine.
Dr. Young?
Dr. Young.
Dr. Young.
Second.
Andrew.
Thank you.
Dr. Andrew.
That was the second.
And there was
Yes, I got a
Okay,
second.
he's got a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Item 3. E3.
E3 is a resolution adopting a resolution is supporting House Bill 2977 and companion legislation in the Senate.
We have a presentation.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. This is very straightforward. The legislation that we're grateful to Representative Jeannie Morrison and State Senator Lois Colcourse for filing would incentivize the construction of a hotel and convention center in Victoria by providing back the full hotel tax. As you know, we collect 13% on every room night stay of more than $2 in less than 30 days. And 7% stays with the city, 6% goes back to the state. In this case, for that one property, that, to be determined on that, where that property would be. But for that one property, we would collect the full 13%, along with any sales tax associated with the property or within 1,000 feet of the exterior walls, and mixed beverage tax associated with businesses inside or near the property as well. This legislation also allows for an incentive that would effectively authorize the use of funding for a sports facility located in the municipality or a congregational facility located on university property in conjunction with a long-term lease. So I'll be glad to answer any questions if you have them.
I do have a question. Do you know, or maybe Mr. Goosh does too, how many other communities filed this during this session? I know there was one.
So far, I've only seen the one this session. Last session, there were 42.
Yeah.
One critical thing in this that is worth noting is that last session, in order to get those 42 bills through, I know because I was one of those cities, we ended up having to sort of kind of go back and forth on some of the language, and there was a sunset clause put in there that set all of those authorizations to expire in 2023. Obviously, we don't want to get authorization in 2021 that's going to expire in 2023, and so we took the simplest route in the amendment piece and changed that to 2027, giving a little bit longer sunset time. But the way it's currently written, if I understand it correctly, and we would consult with Legislative Council on this, would it also extend the sunset for those other 43 cities? So they all have something to gain as well.
Yeah, that's a good hook.
Yeah. We do what we can.
Yeah. So I make a motion that we approve item, what are we on, E?
E3.
Three?
I second.
Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All those opposed?
Oh,
Motion
may I-
carries.
real quick, thank you for getting that one in there. I know we were pressing up against the deadline for bill filings, and I appreciate y'all working hard to get it to Austin and get it on the docket maybe.
Yes, sir. Got a few more steps, but we'll get there. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Item E4.
Item E4 is a resolution opposing the Office of Management and Budget's proposed changes to the 2010 standards for metropolitan and micropolitan statistical areas.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. So my presentation's a little bit longer than that one. But tonight I'm here to discuss some notices that were published to the Federal Register that will could greatly impact the Victoria region. Oh, sorry. Okay, so first I'm going to start with what is a metropolitan statistical area. And these are going to be the definitions that were published with, well, they've been long held since the 50s, but they've been most, I guess, reauthorized with the 2010 census. So a metropolitan statistical area is an area that consists of the county or counties associated with at least one urbanized area of at least 50,000 population. There's also a micropolitan statistical area definition, which states, which is an area that consists of a county or counties associated with at least one urban cluster of at least 10,000 but less than 50,000 population. So the city of Victoria is located within the Victoria MSA area. So this is kind of a relationship between those. So to be a micropolitan statistical area, you have the urban clusters. And to be a metropolitan statistical area, you have to have at least one urbanized area. So the city of Victoria, or a little bit outside of the city of Victoria, is what is considered our urbanized area for the Victoria MSA. And I think that's clear on these two maps. So the Victoria MSA includes both Victoria County and Goliad County, and our population is about 99,600, 99,700, depending on if you look at census estimate, 2019 census estimates or the American Community Survey. There's a little discrepancy, but we're about 300 to 400 people short of being 100,000 at this point in time. Within our MSA, we do have our urban area boundary, which is outlined in gold on the image on your right. So you can see that it is beyond the incorporated limits of the city of Victoria. It takes in other census tracts that have a little bit higher density, so you can see it kind of snakes down to Bloomington and then takes into account some of the Mission Valley area that has a little bit higher population. So the Office of Management and Budget and the Census Bureau both have proposed changes to the Federal Register that will greatly impact both the MSA and our urban area classifications and impact Victoria. So first I'll cover the Office of Management and Budget changes. So they are proposing to change the minimum urban area population to qualify for a metropolitan statistical area should be increased from 50,000 to 100,000. So as I just mentioned, our current population of our MSA is just shy. We're about 300 to 400 people short of meeting that threshold. And then the first annual delineation update of the coming decade shall be combined with the decimal-based delineations, which basically says that this will take effect when they publish the 2020 census data. So the second proposed changes are actually coming out of the Census Bureau. And they are completely redefining what urbanized areas are. So right here, what you see on the screen is the current definition. An urbanized area is a geographic area with a population of 50,000 or more. And then you have the urbanized cluster, which is 2,500 to 50,000. So what they're proposing to change it is to different classification thresholds of census tracts, which are: one, the Census Bureau proposes adopting a housing unit density threshold of 385 units per square mile as the primary criterion for determining whether a census block qualifies for inclusion in an urban area. An area will qualify as urban if it contains at least 4,000 housing units or has a population of at least 10,000. And the Census Bureau proposes to cease distinguishing between different types of urban areas. So basically, there would not be a distinction between an urban area and an urban cluster. So when you take the City of Victoria's census blocks or tracts and you apply these standards, we don't have any area within the city or within our current urban area classification that meets these population density thresholds. So we would basically be losing out and no longer have an area that qualifies as an urban area. So again, just showing those relationship between urban areas. The urban area population has to meet those thresholds, and then you have the micropolitan statistical areas, which become 10,000 and 999,000, or 99,000, and then the metropolitan statistical areas is greater than 100,000. Sorry. So what does this mean for Victoria? In terms of CDBG, it could mean a potential loss of our community development block grant entitlement funds, and over the past 10 years, that's amounted to about $6 million. And then it severely impacts folks that are traditionally disenfranchised. Basically, portions of people, of citizens that are below the poverty level, and then disproportionately also impacts communities of color. It also has a big impact on our MPO. So for the City of Victoria, we are the fiduciary agent for the Victoria Metropolitan Planning Organization, and over the past 10 years, we received about $2.2 million in planning funds. And those are the funds that we use to actually plan for the road projects in our community. So of that, that also translates to 2 metropolitan transportation plans, which amounts to about $500,000 out of that 2.2 used to help create that metropolitan transportation plan, which is how we designate funding for road projects. And then it also could potentially be a loss of our Category 2U funding, which over the past 5 years has equated to $34 million. And that is our actual road projects. So a nursery overpass was an example of Category 2 funding. The Navarro median is an example of Category 2 funding. A lot of our, we also dedicated Category 2 funding to a lot of the upgrades to or Highway 59 to upgrade it to 69 standards.
Is that extra bridges across, or making it 4 lanes go across the river on 463?
I would have to go back and check that. That would not have been all of Category 2 funding. It's a grouped project, but there may have been some Category 2 funding for that project as well. So a lot of times, and a lot of the 59 projects are what we call grouped projects, where it has other sources of funding, bridge funding or whatnot, but there is a local component because our MPO has decided that those projects are important, and that's what's so important is we're going to be losing our local voice. And then also it will impact transportation, urban public transportation funds, which are basically our transit funds. Transit has received approximately $11 million over the last 10 years. So in conclusion, the Census Bureau actually writes this in their Federal Register. They say, nonetheless, the Census Bureau recognizes that some federal and state agencies use the Census Bureau's urban area classification for non-statistical uses, such as allocating program funds. So they're very upfront in acknowledging that these changes could have very detrimental impacts to different communities that are affected by these changes. So what can we do? Right now, the public comment period for the Office and Management budgets recommendation changes are open until this Friday. I was presenting to Commissioners Court yesterday at the same time that Jesus and Maggie Bergeron was on a call with the OMB office to discuss these proposed changes and how they would be detrimental to Victoria, and he coordinated that call through Michael Cloud's office. So we do have a copy of a letter that I believe was provided in your read file that does show about 53 U.S. representatives that submitted a comment or a letter opposing these proposed changes. But that's really probably not enough. We need a lot of people to comment and say that we are opposed to their proposed changes. The second set of changes from the Census Bureau, that comment period actually is not until May 20th. So we have a little bit more time to to draft comments for the Census Bureau, but the OMB's deadline is looming. So what that looks like is, if you could pass the resolution tonight, we will upload that, and that will be a comment from the organization. But it's probably just, again, not enough. We want as many comments as possible, so if everybody's also willing to provide an individual comment. I submitted my individual comment earlier today, and I'd like to offer up Maggie Bergeron in my office to help you. If you need any assistance on drafting that individual comment, we'd be happy to make sure that it gets submitted. But that's what we're asking, you tonight to, of course, pass the resolution that opposes this, and then also asking for individual comments from everyone that is willing to do so. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Julie. I'll just briefly add too that I just received notice via text that State Rep Jeannie Morrison's office also submitted today a letter to the OMB opposing these changes as well.
I just have one quick question, Julie. When you're comparing the micro to the mini, or what is it? Okay, so the micro is not going to get any funding at all? Okay.
Historically, so, saying that this is automatically we're going to lose all our funding, I really can't give you a definitive yes because of how the federal government works. Is, a lot of our funding comes through authorization bills, but a lot of those authorization bills then refer back to these definitions. And so if they change the definitions, then we are dependent upon those authorization bills and all the federal programs to then change their definitions for us to continue to receive what we receive. And I don't have a lot of confidence in that, so that's why it's so concerning.
And you say those definitions have been there since the 50s?
The metropolitan statistical area definition, I know predates or was put in place in 1950. Excuse me, or with the 1950 census. I'm not sure how old the urbanized area definitions are, but they have long been in place, and funding allocations have long been tied to them as well.
Do you have any clue why we were paired with Goliad and not Calhoun County?
Yes. Can I take that? This came up in our call with OMB yesterday. We took advantage of having them on the phone. And we learned that the metric that they utilize to determine which contiguous counties are part of the MSA is based off of a commuter survey. And so if more than 25% of, say, residents in a particular county go to your county, that's how that gets grouped. It's not the reverse, right? So, for example, with Calhoun County, it would mean that 25% of Calhoun County residents would need to be coming to Victoria to do business, go to work, things of that sort. It's not the opposite, right? And so that's literally the only threshold or the only tool that they use to determine that. And that change for us happened in 2013 when they removed Calhoun County. Calhoun County from our MSA, which implied that that commuter survey that they utilized probably didn't show that 25% of Calhoun County was coming to Victoria to conduct business or just go about their normal operation. There might be an opportunity to also, at some point outside of the existing process, provide some position to them that maybe that should change just to make it a little bit easier potentially. But that's the criteria they utilize now, is that commuter survey. And this change, by the way, takes place every 5 years. And so Julie implied that these changes would go into effect when they implement everything that comes out of the 2020 census, which would be in 2023, is what they told us yesterday on the call. Because it just takes time for everything to kind of figure out, go through the process, et cetera, et cetera. So a lot of things can happen from now until then. And right now, they're simply at the point where they're taking the public comment.
You don't know how often they do that survey?
So it's, Julie, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the survey that takes place in between every census.
It's the American Community Survey.
Correct. And that takes place every 5 years, correct?
With yearly estimates.
But technically, it's every 5
Yes.
years. Yeah. So that's why it updates every 5 years. So it was 2013, 2018. The next one will be 2023. And that's how they base it off of that.
Okay.
So they're looking at whether residents in Calhoun commute to Victoria to go to medical, shopping, restaurants, or are they just looking at going to work?
Do you have an answer to that specifically?
She's our expert.
Sorry.
Since
So the answer is going to be as clear as everything the federal government passes, right? The actual definition that they use is an economic tie to the community, which would be the urbanized area or the core base of our MSA. And then you look at the 25% commuter patterns alongside that. So as Jesus had mentioned, it's flow in, not out. So if we have a lot more people coming out, like he was mentioning with Calhoun, that's where we lose that large percentage of population that we know commutes back and forth from the counties daily. Goliad, about over 50% of their workforce works outside of the county, and data supports that it's here or Calhoun, so.
And is Calhoun currently in an MSA?
No, when they were removed from our MSA, they got left, yeah. They're technically a micro, yeah.
That's frustrating.
Basically,
It
we have
is,
to wait till
but even more reason for us to
2023.
focus on economic development projects that are in our county, so that people come into our county, and not the opposite.
Well, and if you wish, if the OMB is going to make arbitrary, definition changes, let's focus on things like commuter patterns and what it makes up an MSA and not just random population thresholds that could hurt, 145 communities.
And in case you're wondering why they're proposing 100,000, is because their rationale was that the population in the United States has doubled in the last 60 years, and so they figure, well, we'll just double the parameters for MSA. Very sophisticated approach.
So I would offer or suggest that comments should maybe be focused on, statistics of, or characters of communities that are 50,000 are the same as 100 or 150. If we want to call out any specific communities, we should, the census maybe should, or OMB should focus on a mega region definition, because we're a lot closer statistically to a community of 100 or 150 than others.
Yeah, and that's a good distinction. I mean, naturally, all of the communities that are impacted are going to focus on the financial impact. But the reality is that for us, it's much more than that. I mean, we truly are the central hub for this region. Some of the other communities in the state, for example, Longview, Abilene, that would be impacted by this change, have cities of over 100,000 people within an hour from them, right? And for us, it's not like that. I mean, for us, literally, Victoria is the hub for the entire region. And so you can't compare us to some of these other cities that might lose the designation because of their proximity to larger MSAs, and we're just not there.
I know how we like to point out that really it's a radius of 60 miles and 250,000 in population. And that's another way
Yeah,
of
it's for a
saying.
retail trade area.
Right, and
Yes.
that's another way of saying what you just said, that we don't have a big metropolitan area within an hour.
Right.
I move we adopt item E4 wholeheartedly.
Okay, any more discussion? If not, we'll call for the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We had a first and a second? Okay, good. All those opposed? Motion carries. Item E5,
Item E5 is a resolution awarding the 2021 Seal Coat project, including Cimarron, Silverado, Waterstone, and Riata subdivisions to CK Newberry LLC for their competitive sealed bid in the amount of $863,925.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. This is a resolution to award the contract for the 2021 Seal Coat of Cimarron, Silverado, Waterstone, and Riata. The agenda tonight is very similar to what we've done in the past. We're going to discuss the procurement method, project overview, and where we're going forward. And I'll turn over the procurement portion to Laura.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. Like Henson, I'm going to talk about the procurement method. Once again, for This one, we use the competitive sealed proposal under 2269. By using this method, we were able to use the weighted criteria in order to rank the offers to negotiate a price in order to get the best value for the city. For this project, we received 4 proposals from CK Newberry out of Kennedy, Texas, Clark Construction from San Antonio, Brandon Paving out of Victoria, and Rexco out of Port Lavaca. On the right-hand side, you can see that's the criteria and the weights for this project. The proposals were submitted by line item. They were evaluated by a committee that was made up of Ken Gill, Daryl Siebert, Mike Petro, Todd Jerish, and myself. The committee selected the proposal that offered the best value to the city, which was CK Newberry. They were selected for negotiations to find possible areas for reduction in the proposal. None were found through the negotiations. The final cost was $863,925. Are there any questions as far as the procurement goes? Thank you. I'm going to pass it back to Ken.
Okay, as she discussed, CK Newberry was selected for this proposal. As you're aware, they are a new company. They were formerly known as Tierra Lease Service, which has bid a lot of projects here in Victoria. This is the first one where they were selected. We called their references out of Karnes City, Kennedy. Also, they did some work here locally for Victoria County. And they all they were in good shape. They said they did a good job. They were very responsive to any questions they had. Also checked to make sure this project involves a seal coat. And then followed that, we're going to place the Onyx application on it. And Onyx is a very special application. It requires a special machinery, and the supplier has contacted those